You've got questions. We've got answers. Today's a fun one, Stevie boy. Mailbag day, college football, NFL draft, and details of the scouting process. We're covering it all. Just 283 days until the NFL draft. Muench, you good?
I'm good, man.
What's DJ Tuck got queued up for the kids today? This is where it pays to be a premium subscriber, Muench. If you're a premium subscriber to the McShay Report, you got to get your questions in. We're answering them today. This is fun. I like to do this. It's the middle of the summer. Like, sometimes our audience needs to be our producers. That's what you guys are doing for us today. Truly. Like, we've covered wide receivers. We've covered like 8 different quarterbacks, the Manning Passing Academy, Clemson's prospects, all that stuff. We've kind of come up with the content. I've traveled down to New Orleans, mentions, watched a ton of tape. We've got it all leading up to the spot. But like, sometimes we just got to take a step back, let our audience drive the train. And today that's what we're doing. So McShay Report premium subscribers. And if you have not subscribed yet, please do so. Just Google the McShay Report.
Let's go.
I don't even think we've got 11,000 subscribers yet. Like, what are we doing? We're building this thing. We need help. We need support. You guys have been awesome with us. Please continue to subscribe on YouTube, hit the likes, do all the things that you know you need to do on Apple, obviously on Spotify and everywhere else you get your podcasts. But another way you can support what we're trying to build here, what we want to be the smartest NFL draft community or whatever. I'm going to come up with I fucking hate community, but a better group, a better crew. We just want like a smarter messaging out there. If you want to be a part of this, please subscribe. The subscribers sent in questions. We're answering them today. Also important to note before we get started, if you are a subscriber, a premium subscriber, I'm doing a whole separate mailbag. Maybe Dan didn't get the memo. It's July. It's the summer. I want you to look at all these pages. Like, look at all this. I've got Lord knows how many pages worth of questions, but I'm going to answer them because that's what we do. We want your support, then we better step up, and that's what we're going to do. So that's the deal. Muench, why don't you get us kicked off? We're going to get to as many questions as we can today. Try to keep it under an hour, but let's have some fun with it. So go ahead. What's the first question for me?
We got some great ones, man. Here's the first one. Hey, Todd, love the content. My question is, out of all the QBs in the 2026 class, excluding Arch Manning, who do you think has the highest ceiling and the lowest floor? Thanks. That's from Kyle.
All right, Kyle. We appreciate you.
Good start.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Ceiling's a tough one because, I think Cade Klubnik might be the best quarterback in this class, excluding Arch Manning, and we don't know about, he's just not included yet simply because we don't have enough of a catalog on him. But when I think ceiling, the highest ceiling, I think if they develop perfectly and they become everything that physically and mentally they can become over time, I'm going to say Lenora Sellers, the South Carolina quarterback. I just think you can't coach what he has. Most importantly, the athletic traits, the speed, the agility, the ability to extend plays, and then he's got the big arm to go with it. Now, refinement and more consistency. We did the whole story on Lenoris. And if you haven't, by the way, all these quarterbacks and a lot of the other stuff that we've covered, the Clemson defense, the Manning Passing Academy, it's on the McShay page or the McShay Show page for YouTube. Same for Spotify, same for Apple, same for everywhere you get your podcast. We go back and just listen. Everyone's been busy. It's the summer. I get it, but we're getting closer now. And so go back and listen or watch to some of the past shows, and you'll get a much more detailed breakdown on Lenora Sellers. Good luck finding a more detailed breakdown of Lenora Sellers. I don't know that Lenora Sellers' parents know about as much about Lenora Sellers as we do. And we provided, obviously they do.
So do you think it's the same answer? Do you think he has the lowest floor too?
No. I think Drew Aller has the lowest floor.
We agree. Yeah, because for Sellers, you could say that he is not as developed as Aller, and I get that. but Sellers always has that strength and mobility to lean on. So the floor is a little higher for him because of the mobility. Whereas Aller is a big boy too, but he doesn't move like that. So if he's not good in the pocket, if he's not, doesn't have a great year, then he's got the lower floor, in my opinion.
I totally agree. And there's two things I told you when we went through the Drew Aller breakdown. Again, you can go back and watch the whole show. It's like an hour long. His inability to accurately throw to receivers that are running away from him, to visualize it, to lead receivers open is concerning. Okay. Then you add the fact that the lack of mobility in today's day and age, he doesn't have. Like, this is 1995. He's the number one prospect, right? He doesn't have the mobility and the ability as a result to get himself out of as much trouble, especially when you're young and you don't have all the answers to the test at the line of scrimmage and post snap. So I worry about that with Aller. You combine those two things. That's a scary combination. I also want to know, why the hell isn't he down in Thibodaux, Louisiana? Because I've heard reasons why that I will not share, because I only share things that I confirm and know for facts. But like, why? It's been a few years, different opportunities. It's not the coaching staff. So there's just some stuff that's concerning there. It's interesting. Let's also get, we're doing this for the subscribers. These are my rankings as of right now for the quarterbacks. I'm going rogue. And I got a bonus question from Michael. Then I'll let you get us back on the tracks with the question too. But this is
already off the rails.
Already off the rails. We're 7 minutes in. Cade Klubnik 1. Garrett Nussmeier 2. I'm like a dog with a bone on Nussmeier.
Yeah, man.
Sellers 3. Fernando Mendoza 4. And by the way, we both want to see Sellers, unless something drastically changes this year and depending on circumstances. I think Sellers is best suited to play 2025 and 2026 in college football and come out for that 2027 draft, whether Arch Manning is in that class or not. We want to see his development. And I think the best thing for him would be 2 years. So it's Klubnik, Nussmeier, Sellers, Fernando Mendoza, the Cal transfer to IU, Sam Leavitt, Arizona State, then Drew Aller. I know that surprises a lot of people because everyone's got a lot of people. When I did my reading, when doing that stupid way too early mock draft, a lot of people had him as QB1 or QB2. John Mateer, Oklahoma, transfer 2 from Washington State this year. Love that cat. Looks like a fullback. I love it. Then kind of the next tier, and we'll get to some of these guys maybe in a little bit. Sawyer Robertson, Baylor, Avery Johnson, Kansas State, Miller Moss, Louisville now, transferred from USC, and Carson Beck, Georgia, transferred to Miami. And obviously Arch Manning is not on that list for all the reasons we've talked about. So that's a little bonus nugget for everyone. And Mensch doesn't have to agree or disagree. We'll just move on. Bonus question. We'll call it 1A from Michael. And this will appear in the newsletter. It's a little taste of what you can get in the newsletter for the McShay report tomorrow. Okay. And I will answer in more detail there. Who could this year's Cam Ward be? I love this question. Someone who is projected day 2, day 3 at this same point, who winds up going round 1. I'm going to jump off with this. I'm not saying he's going round 1. And obviously I wouldn't have said Cam Ward necessarily last year. Sawyer Robertson has my attention. And the reason why I love doing this is Michael forced me to go and watch tape. I finished up a wide receiver I haven't done this morning, and I was like, I got to do it. So I went and watched Sawyer Robertson's tape. He was the most pleasant surprise of all the quarterbacks I told you from the Manning Passing Academy. Transferred to Baylor after 3 seasons at Mississippi State, 1 as a starter plus 4 games in 2023. I told you he won the first round of the competition at Friday night at the Manning Passing Academy, just like deadly accurate, on the move, all the stuff. Father Stan, first round draft pick. Remember, if you go back to our the show we did on the Passing Academy. His father, Stan, was a first-round draft pick of the Expos 1990 Major League Baseball draft, also cousin of Jarrett Stidham. So that's kind of the backdrop. So I watched his tape. He throws really well on the move, right and left. He's not a running threat, but he's a lot more mobile than I thought, even watching him at the Passing Academy, okay? Really good job sliding, boots out. His Baylor protection wasn't very good. Let's call it what it is. So he's on the move a lot, forced to be, but knows when to climb, knows when to roll out right and left. Throws really well, like almost more accurately and better on the left to the left side than he does the right. His arm's not elite, but it's a plus arm. I would say his mobility's plus. He's got like this suddenness to him. Very comfortable running when he's supposed to, when it's necessary. Buys time. He's not overly shifty and elusive, not overly fast, but he's a pretty athletic kid for 6'4", 220 pounds. But he's just highly accurate throwing the football. The ball's on a string, the intermediate stuff. Just puts it where it needs to go. Throws to spots, between zones, all that stuff. Leads receivers open. The one knock is down the field. When he misses, he's got a tendency to miss high. And the further down the field, the less accurate he becomes, and the balls start to sail a little bit. So I'll be looking for that this year. But Sawyer Robertson, in a class where I just mentioned, names like Klubnik, Nussmeier, Sellers, Mendoza, Levitt, Aller, Mateer, Arch Manning, we'll see where he comes out, Avery Johnson, Miller Moss, Carson Beck. I haven't heard anything about this guy. And he caught my eye down in Thibodaux, Louisiana. I just watched a good, not all of the tape, but I think 4 games. And I like him. So when Michael asked me who could be a guy that climbs, I'm not saying round 1, but he's a guy that's like not really on the radar that I think as we get closer, he's a name that's going to be in the mix a little bit.
Like it. I'm going to try to get you back on track here.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Todd, love the content and the summer scouting series. You have talked and written a lot about the quarterback position, but there has been no mention of Carson Beck until just now. Is he not viewed as a viable NFL quarterback? I see a lot of this on our socials too. This is a big question that people have about Carson Beck. I'm as interested as anyone else to hear what you have to say right now.
I appreciate it, Kevin, because I've been kind of trying to avoid the subject. He's big. He's had some really good moments. The beauty of what we do on the McShay show, the Saturday Night Live shows, we kind of were like, it's kind of like a running journal, if you will, of like where we are in the process. Like we watched the Nussmeier, the ups, the downs, that he's not ready, Jalen Milroe, Carson Beck. He's got a good arm. There's some throws, like the in-breaking stuff he does a nice job with. He's really good off of play action. He has moments, okay? I go back to what we said constantly last season. He just makes his receivers work for it, okay? That's one thing. When I watch other quarterbacks when they're throwing the ball, like Cam Ward last year, the same class, Jackson Dart, they're spotting the ball. Receivers are running to it. Shedeur Sanders, like making things easy on receivers. They're laboring. They were laboring down in Athens, okay? Inconsistent with decisions. I thought there was games or even parts of games, really smart, made good decisions. Other parts where it was like, what are we doing? We played too much ball for this. Do you trust the guy? And I'm not talking about the quarterback. I'm talking, do you trust the guy? I'm not telling you. I'm asking you. Do you trust the guy? And I'm not asking you, Steve. I'm asking audience, people, what they read. People, do you trust what your eyes and your ears and your common sense are telling you? Why is UGA kind of, we're good?
Is Gunnar Stockton that good?
Why is Georgia like, we're good with him moving on? I just saw Gunnar Stockton down at Manning Passing Academy, and I saw him last year at the end of the year. He does some really good things. He's athletic. He's competitive. He's a grinder. He fits exactly what the program wants. He ain't that good. He's not a world beater. He's not Arch Manning. This is not Arch coming back and he's ready to go. And Quinn, it's time to move on with the NFL or your grad transfer. This is not that deal. Gunner's good. He's not that good. Miami's got money. Ain't got that much money. You're telling me in Georgia's budget, if this guy was that good, and more importantly, if they trusted him and they loved the guy and they loved elevate the team, and it was about the team and about the guys in his huddle, the guys in the locker room. If it was about the right things, you're telling me the dogs wouldn't have come up with the money and made sure that this was the number one priority, okay? So I'm asking you as our audience, if you're asking me the question, I'm going to throw a little bit back on your plate. And I'm going to ask you, what do your senses tell you? Okay. I'm not going to share details or certain things, and I share almost everything, and I'm probably too transparent with a lot of stuff. But I know why he wasn't at the Manning Passing Academy. I don't know definitively, but I get a good idea why Drew Aller wasn't. And people who make decisions are the ones telling me why. It's not some vendetta. They want to know the whys. They know why Fernando Mendoza wasn't there. Coach decided. First year with the program. We need him here. Frustrating, but understandable. Mendoza was here the year before. Awesome guy. Grinder. Great with the campers. Does all the right things. Wanted to be back. Made the right calls. Personally. Respectful. Okay? So go find out why is he not there? Why is Georgia letting him go? Those are my answers.
Yeah, I thought I was going to call you out for being too cryptic at first, but I think you covered that well.
Yeah.
You know, you're saying it without having to really come out and say it. The next one. This is a good one because I think there are times where we say things that I think people understand that we go through too fast and that we need to stop and clarify. So Ron asks, I think, a good clarification question. He says, what positions would you classify as premium positions as of today? And does that change over time because of how offenses utilize players, which then correspondingly has an impact on premium defensive positions? Ron Smart. Purely how teams assess value. Running backs still seem to be used quite a bit, but it seems like teams treat them more and more as commodities that can be easily replaced, or some other factors. Can we look at the last few drafts to see first and second round position selections, and that may begin to suggest the emergence of reduction of positions of value that you currently don't classify as premium positions? Thanks as always for your insight.
Let's work backwards on this a little bit, okay? Because it's a super smart question, and we could actually do like close to a show on it, but I'll try to be concise. I think, and Ron, I want to make it perfectly clear, like you're going down the right road with this. I've always said, and I'll continue to share, like talent trumps trends, okay? And trends being positions of value. If there's an elite first round, if there's an Ashton Gint, he's going in the first round. If there's an Omarion Hampton, he's going in the first round. Okay. But there's some other guys that were really damn good. And we thought maybe Travion Henderson could go. We thought maybe, Judkins could sneak in. We thought, you know what I mean? So the market tells you the value, just like that 2017 class with Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey. We told you there were 30 running backs taken in that class. But it was really backloaded. And we warned you as we got closer to the draft because we spent months, and I almost wanted to like pump the brakes a little. Like, this class is awesome. And it turned out to be awesome. It was 4 shy of that number, 30 running backs, which is like, I don't know if it's a modern day record, but it's like in the last couple of decades. There were 26 running backs taken, but guess what? 20 of them were on day 3. And let me read some names to you. Only 6 went in the first 3 rounds, not first 2, first 3 rounds. Let me read some names to you, okay? Caleb Johnson was 3rd, sorry. Bashul Tootin, who had a combine workout that was Cam Scatabo, who carried Arizona State, and we talked about how great his tape was. Dylan Sampson, the Tennessee offense ran through him. Jordan James, we both were in love with out of Oregon. Jaden Blue, even your boy, the Kansas State guy.
Devin Neal.
No, Devin Neal is Kansas. And Kansas
the glitch,
State.
DJ
Gideon. They all went on day 3. Okay. So that's like, that kind of addresses running back. If they're elite, they're going to go, but there's this like hold pattern going on in draft rooms, right? Now let's talk premium picks at all positions. This is my opinion. You can chime in when I finish this rant quickly. Quarterback is number 1. Pass rusher is number 2. Then I think it kind of depends on the kind of what you're trying to do, what your systems are, all that. But the next 3, in my opinion, and you can rank them in any order you want: pass protector, pass catcher, cover corner. Cover corner doesn't go as high in the first round, all this stuff. But so the premium positions are quarterback, pass rusher, pass protector, and I'm talking perimeter, blind side protector, basically. Receivers and cover corners. Last year was highly unusual, okay? And we said it leading up. It was just a different draft. We had a couple special tight ends. We had a couple special running backs. So that threw it off, the percentages off a little bit. But it also was this isn't a great draft at the top. Let's hit some doubles. Let's get on base. Let's not swing for the fences, because there was a lot of character stuff. There was some durability stuff. There weren't elite players that were worth taking risks on. So you saw 3 guards come off the board. You saw 2 linebackers come off the board. You did have elite tight ends and running backs. So you saw 4 at those 2 positions. So it turned out there were 9 players in the first round that went, which was highly unusual. Running back, tight end, guard, center, linebacker, safety. Okay. Those are the non-premium positions, in my opinion. 2024 was a lot more of a normal sample size, okay? In 2024, there were just 3 tight ends, running back, center, guard, linebacker, safeties that went off the board in the first round. 29 were quarterback, left tackle, wide receiver, defensive line, pass rushers, and cornerbacks. That's 9%. 89%. So 91% were the premium positions. Now, in the first 2 rounds last year, or 2024, I should say, that's 64 picks. Just 17%. But then you get to round 3, where it's like, okay, now we'll take our running back. Now we'll take our tight end. Now we'll take our linebacker. Now we'll take our safety. You ready for this? 37 picks were in round 3 in 2024. 20 of them were running back, tight end, center, guard, linebacker, safety. Only 17. So it flips when you get to the middle rounds. Now we go get those non-premium positions, and we've already taken a good deal of the premium guys, and we can come back to them later. 54%. So you went from 9% in the first round, 17% in the second round, to 54%. Majority were non-premium positions.
Yeah. It makes sense. I do want to say 2 things. One is that I think pass blocker is right on par with that edge rusher. And I get it. I get the argument for putting edge rusher as number 2, but I think those are really the 3. I think you need to score more points than the other team in this league. You need guys who can pass block. And I think it's getting tougher and tougher to find those great offensive tackles.
That's where they always get driven up the board because they're so hard to find. Of course.
Yes. So I agree with you on the top 3 that they would be pass block. It would be obviously quarterback, defensive end, pass blocker. I think you can argue about that a little bit in terms of the order. I do think that when you're looking at the evolution of positions and players and all that, I think corner is starting to become more important because it's harder to find corners than it is safeties. I think more kids want to play wide receiver now. I think it's harder to find that. The other thing that's interesting to me is, and I think Ron kind of gets to this about the evolution of the game, and I think we anticipate market shifts a little bit. And in the anticipation of 2 positions to me specifically is interesting, of whether or not they're going to be valued more going forward. And one is being that nickel defensive back, that nickel safety, specifically, I think, the guy that plays inside, because everyone plays with 5 defensive backs now. That's just the nickel is basically the base. So that guy, that nickel safety, and the reason I think the value hasn't gone up because teams have had success finding players outside the first round and the second round. They don't need to go find those players early on. They can find them later on. The other position is tight end. And I mean the versatile tight ends, the Colson Lovelands of the world, who can make you multiple on offense when you want to go tempo, a guy who can line up in the slot, can line up wide, can line up in line, is competitive enough, all of those things. I think that position's become more important on the field. The problem with that is there's been a flood of tight end talent. So they don't really need to, the league hasn't decided that it needs to change the way it addresses the position and get those players earlier. It's a little confusing, but that's why the premium positions still are the way they are. Quarterbacks are hard to find, man. Offensive tackles are hard to find. Edge rushers are hard to find. They're just tough to find. You got to get them early and take your shots early. Whereas I think that some of these other positions are becoming more important when you show up on Sundays and you play. And just like running backs are super important when you get into the game. But if you can find talented running backs outside the first round, if you can find talented tight ends, if you can find talented nickel guys, you're not going to go and reach and try to get them earlier. And that's why the board's set the way it is.
All right, let's get a couple for the big fella. For Muench, Andrew writes, as an offensive line guy, how is the Michigan offensive line able to dominate over a 3-year span from 2021 to 2023 without having premium talent across the board? Sans Zach Zinter, who was even injured during the Rose Bowl and national championship wins. In their respective drafts, only Zinter went in the top 100. He was pick 85, and most were day 3 selections. It's actually a great question. 2021 starters were Ryan Hayes, Keegan, Vistardis, Zinter, Stuber. Then it was Hayes, Keegan, Oluwatimi, Zinter, and Barnhart. Then in 2023, it was Ladarius Henderson, Keegan, Drake Nugent, Zinter, and Barnhart. Then Barnhart, Trent Jones. So, thanks for everything, guys. Andrew, go ahead, sort it out, Muench.
I think it's a great question, and I mean, you want to look at some of these stats here. 1, the national championship in 23, you got to look at. 2, first ever team to win back-to-back Joe Moore Awards, which is awarded to the best college offensive line. These guys were, I mean, you look at the statistics, they were first in rushing yards per game in the Big Ten for 2 years in a row, 2022, 4th in 23. Then you look at 21, fewest sacks allowed. The next year, 22, third fewest sacks allowed. This is all Big Ten numbers. The next year after that, third fewest sacks allowed. Statistically, this all adds up, and they were a championship team. And look, I love those offensive lines. As a former offensive lineman, those guys were tough. They played together. They were smart. But there is one downfall, and I think that, again, you're going to look at I will say this before I talk about the one fatal flaw, I think, for them not producing early round guys. You also remember their offensive line coach is now their head coach, Sharon Moore, outstanding offensive line coach. I think that has to be said. You also had a running back in Blake Corum who was an outstanding college running back who you could hand the ball 20 times. I know he had some injury issues, but when he played, I mean, I remember pictures of him after the games, bloody face. I mean, he would run through a brick wall for those guys. He got them everything that they gave them. That offensive line must have loved blocking for him because he got everything that they gave him plus a little more every single time. And you had a damn good quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. So it was a good supporting cast of that offensive line as well. You got to look at that a little bit too. But the fatal flaw for them was they are not great pass blockers. And I remember writing up all those guys in 23. I think I wrote up 6 offensive linemen for Michigan. I wrote up 6 reports, and all of them projected as guards because there was a concern with all of them about their ability to pass block on the outside. They did not have, as good as those lines were as a unit, and they were awesome. Awesome. They did not have a Taylor Lewan. They did not have a Jake Long. There was not that elite Michigan offensive lineman that you think about in the past. They just didn't have that guy. So as a unit, and I love this about offensive line play, outstanding. Outstanding. The collection's better than the individual. I can't say it enough about those groups. They just didn't have those elite offensive line prospects that could pass block, really. And you look at that Penn State game in 23, where J.J. McCarthy had 8. He went 7 for 8 in the first half, and he threw 1 time in the second half, and it was a pass interference call. So at the end of the game, 7 for 8. The reason they didn't run the ball wasn't because of they didn't pass the ball, wasn't because of J.J. McCarthy. It was because they couldn't pass block that Penn State defensive line. And that's an issue. The name of the game, you can do that. That's their identity in Michigan. Pound the rock, play great defense, and it works. When you get to the NFL, you're going to face guys that you got to pass block one-on-one, and they don't really have players like that on those units.
Andrew, are you not entertained? Holy fuck.
I love those offensive lines, man.
That's the longest offensive line breakdown I've ever heard in my life. Meanwhile, all I can think about is if you hear young kids screaming in the background, college football is coming, and EA Sports college football just dropped when we're taping it today, and they're maniacs. PlayStation and Xbox we had to get it for. Don't even ask me why. All right, next one for you, Muench. Let's keep it under 40 minutes. From Robert.
Sorry.
Thoughts on the 2 Utah offensive linemen? Rich coming from me, by the way. Thoughts on the 2 Utah offensive linemen, Fano and Lomu, showing up in some mocks. Also love you guys. No podcast. I'd rather develop a parasocial relationship.
Do you know what that means? I don't even know what that means.
No, but I love it. Keep them coming. I'll parasocial with you all day, Robert. What do you got, Muench?
Really, you're gonna throw this at me?
I know you texted me earlier.
Listen,
gosh.
I'm gonna go in with Lomu first. He's a redshirt sophomore, first year starting last year. Very encouraging.
What position?
Very exciting. He plays left tackle.
Okay.
He plays left tackle for Utah. He's 6'6". He's a taller guy. I think. Well, I'm gonna start with the flaws first. Some of the things that I want to see him improve on. He's a taller guy. The pads rise a little bit. He battles to a stalemate a little too much in the run game. He can fall off blocks. I think he's got to do a little bit better job of keeping his pads down. But this guy can move, man. He's going to be great in his zone scheme. He's a great positional blocker already. I watched him in pass pro, and I'm like, damn. If he was to come out, I really believe this. If he was to come out, and if he has the same kind of year as he had last year and he came out, I think he would be a second-round pick. And depending on how he tested and interviewed, he'd be in the mix. So that's how much I like Lomu. But god damn with Fano. I mean, I can't. There are, from a technical standpoint, when you watch him, you got to clean up that footwork, man. You got to clean up some of the footwork things that you're doing. But what it gives you an opportunity to see is how freaking explosive and athletic he is.
You texted me one clip, and I was like, whew.
And he wasn't even doing anything. He would just set outside and redirect it inside. He is 6'6". He's 300 pounds. I'll start in the run game. I think he's an elite run blocker despite all his limitations. He is explosive off the ball, knockback power. He's going to drive guys. He can reach linebackers. He can fit in a zone heavy run scheme. He's got all of those tools. And yes, he plays his base narrows and he can fall off blocks, but he's so aggressive. He stays connected. And he gets away with some of the flaws in the technique because of how aggressive he is, how athletic he is, how talented he is, and how quick he is. It's incredible to watch. And it's the same thing in pass pro, man. There are times when he gets beat, you're like, oh, well, that's a problem. And then the way he recovers, the way he gets back is outstanding. I mean, it is outstanding. I have no other word for it. And so to me, I'm looking at a player that can already has the athletic ability and the natural ability to overcome all these flaws. And then maybe you get him in there and you refine and get all this polished. I mean, he is scratching the surface as how good he is. The one thing I will say, I wonder about the length a little bit. And I know no one wants to hear about length about offensive tackles right now. And we'll do it farther down the road.
Literally nobody. In the middle of July.
But I will say
this. To be breaking down the length of a Utah offensive tackle.
When Robert's asking me thoughts on him showing up in mocks, damn right he is. Damn right he is. And I think when you do your appropriately early mock, I'm going to be pounding the table for this guy to go early.
Noted. What do we got next?
Up next, we got a question from Erik. When I'm going through my own evaluations on players, I think it's a good one too, especially quarterback. How important is it to go back to the year before and see where the prospect was compared to the now of where they are?
I always do it. It tells a story. And it's the reason why we're doing it this summer. I now know the baseline for Klubnik and Nussmeier and Sellers, especially a guy like that. I want to see, I know it for Aller. I know the areas they need to improve. I want to see, like, not only are we improving upon it, but like, are they putting in the work to do it? Like, part of this whole thing, man, it's like anything in life, any job you do, any relationship you have, none of us was born perfect. And so, like, not to get too weird about it, but like, I want to know what I'm getting. I want to know that DeAndre Moore, who we'll get to next week at wide receiver for Texas, saw that he had 11 point whatever drop percentage and was battling the football and his body catching. I want to know, okay, he's like, it's been very clear to him. I'd be shocked if it's not a point of emphasis for Coach Sark and that staff. And I'm not to single him out here, but I'm just saying, like, everyone has their weaknesses and areas they can improve. He comes out and he's attacking the ball with his hands and he's plucking and he's aggressive and more confident. I'm like, not only do I see that trait on the field, I know this is the same cat that was running 40 yards down the field blocking. And so now I start to see a whole picture of who he is. What's my investment? And every position. So I think it's really important. We've done it for 25 years here. Go ahead.
The other aspect of this, and this happens a fair amount, guys have bad years. And God forbid something like this happens. Maybe there's something off the field that's a distraction. Maybe a family member is sick.
Injury reports aren't the same in college as the NFL. All of it.
Maybe they're battling an injury. Maybe there's something going on within the program where they're not getting along with a new coach or the scheme doesn't fit them. I think it's always good. And I remember our good friend Joe Douglas told me this once. He, former GM for the Jets. He told us, you guys can have a bad year. What did they do the year before? Don't give up on those guys. I think Malachi Starks is a sort of an example of this. The Georgia safety who went to Baltimore in the first round. I didn't think he had as great a year last year. 2 years ago, he was awesome.
Derek Stingley.
Derek Stingley is a much better example. Derek Stingley at LSU is a much better example because he had that bad last year. And you could look at these players, but what was going on? So there's not only the arc and you're hoping to see the development, but there's also, well, why didn't this guy play like he did the year before? You dig in, you find out what was going on, and you're like, you know what? This guy's still a guy that can go and help someone in the league. This is still a guy that a team should invest in an early round pick on it. So there's that side of it as well.
The other thing I do, just as a side note, Erik, I'll go back before I do a position group and I'll go back and watch, I'll newsreel it. Who are the top 2 or 3 guys that got drafted last year? Last year when we started on Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart and all those guys, before I even started on that, I went and newsreeled Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, and Drake May. They were the top 3 quarterbacks taken, right? And so I do that, and I'm not watching the NFL tape, although there are times I go do that during the process as well to see where they have to get. And I'm like, you're always training your eyes, okay? And so you do that to help remind, like, that's what it looks like. And no one from this class looked like those guys. Drake May was in a system that didn't translate, and Caleb went through his stuff at USC with the turnovers in the Notre Dame game, and Jaden made a huge jump. But when I was done with that, my eyes were trained. Okay, that's what it looks like. And I didn't see anything from this class that was at that level, but I still saw a lot of good. And so it helped keep perspective because we had to keep year-to-year grades, So I know that's not exactly what he asked, but that's in addition to. All right, next one for you, Muench. If you gave me that long on Utah offensive lineman, I'm a pack a lunch, Tucker and
All
Dan.
right, I'm going to try to be quick here.
Mark and Eduardo. What's the future of Indiana football? Do you think that the 2024 was an anomaly, or are we building something sustainable in Bloomington? Loved your write-up /podcast on Fernando Mendoza. We appreciate that, Mark.
So here's the thing. I'm more optimistic now that Cignetti's there. I like what they're doing with the program. They're spending a little bit of money. But this is a new world, and you have to be a little bit of a realist here and say, are you going to spend Ohio State money? Are you going to spend Michigan money? Are you going to spend Oregon money? We're talking about just within the conference, and then talking about, are getting back in the playoffs and being able to compete with these playoff teams. Look, I think Indiana is in a better spot than they were. I think they were really, to be honest with you, a basement dweller in the conference, and now they're a middle of the road program that I think, depending on the schedule, like happened last year, where they got I think the schedule favored that run. Depending on the schedule, Cignetti's going to get good players. He's going to coach them well. If everything falls their way, they can make a run. They can be an interesting team. But I'm being a realist here. They are still not. I mean, they're building something sustainable and something competitive. But am I ready to put them in the top part of the league and say that they're a team that's going to go to the playoffs every year? I can't do that. I've heard they're spending $20 million, which seems like a lot of money. I tried to get the exact numbers for this, and maybe I should have asked someone else. I couldn't do it, but I'm hearing the top teams are spending $40 million now a year, and in Indiana's in the 20s. That's good.
This, though. Okay. I hear you. You're not wrong. But he's asking, is it an anomaly? I don't think so. I think their schedule played out well, and I think they cut going to the college football playoff. Yes. But I want to say this, man, like, they're also one of the best coach teams I watched on tape all last year.
Agree.
I'm not saying give me 20 million and I don't want to say better coaches, but like the product that is being coached with that 20 million, they're heading in the right direction. I also want to remind IU fans, and I don't think we have to remind Mark or anyone, like remind you, Muench. They had CJ West and Curtis Rourke, I believe, were their 2 draft picks last year, right?
Yes.
You know how many draft picks they had in 2024?
Guessing none.
23.
None.
22.
I'm trying to I can't even think of the last guy that was drafted out of there.
2022 was the last guy who was drafted.
Was it tight end?
Round. Micah McFadden, linebacker.
Okay.
2021, Lamar Johnson, defensive back. 5th round. Both 5th round, okay? 2020, they had 1 draft pick. 2019, they had 1 draft pick. None before the 4th round. 2018 is the last time that they had 2. 2018, 6 years ago. 7. Okay? The last time they had 3 drafted was back in 2016. So it'll be a decade when we come up on this draft that they had 3. That was Jason Spriggs in the 2nd round. Jordan Howard, the running back, went to the Bears in the 5th. And Nate Sudfeld, the quarterback, who went in the 6th round to they were the Redskins then, the Commanders now. But 2026 draft prospects, you ready? Fernando Mendoza could be a late 1st or 2nd round pick, day 2 maybe. Elijah Surratt, we'll talk about on the wide receiver podcast next week. D'Angelo Pons, cornerback. Mikhail Kamara, edge. Pat Coogan, Notre Dame transfer, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's 5 guys right there that I really believe will get drafted.
I think that they're definitely going in the right direction. Look, I was concerned about their schedule. I just pulled it up. I hadn't really looked at it. They're at Oregon in October, and they're at Penn State in November. Those are 2 tough games. They're competitive, if not winning the rest of the rest of those. I mean, they got Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State for Mendoza to get his feet wet. Right out of the gate, they got 3 opponents that they fare well against. They got Illinois at home to open the Big Ten schedule.
Illinois is going to be tough this year.
I know, but I know. Illinois. Then they got
Google me,
Iowa.
bro. Google me.
Michigan State's going to be better, I think. I mean, you're playing a Big Ten schedule. I get that. But they're competitive in the rest of those games.
All right, next up. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, if everything comes together. Yeah, Tucker, I might need you to bring back the music for me this time. Anyways, our next question is from Devin. We hear about GMs and or owners who get enamored with a specific trait, whether it be speed, arm length, character, Vrabel strength, I like that, etc. What do you think you would be enamored trait? What would be your enamored trait if you were in a front office? I think we'd all like to think we wouldn't get caught up in a specific trait. That's what I'd like to think too, Devin. But it probably happens to all front office personnel, and I think you're right about that too, Devin.
General, like 30,000 foot view. I used to lean more speed.
Mm-hmm.
And now I lean more sturdy strength, power, because it's a man's game. And I've learned my biggest mistakes, obviously not at quarterback or even skill positions, but wide receiver. Some of my bigger mistakes have been, God, that speed, my goodness, it's, but if you don't have the power behind it, it typically doesn't work out the way that you expect it to.
So he mentions character in this. So I'm gonna address it that this is what my hope would be. The first two things I would look at are they a student of the game and what's their work ethic? Because when I hear the greats talk and they talk about, again, I'm going to reference a video about Devontae Adams playing wide receiver. I love this video. He talks about talking to Doug Baldwin about his release, and Doug Baldwin talks about watching Allen Iverson's crossover to learn about his release. Same video, Adams is talking about a 2017 route that he ran that they tweaked to run another way in a later game. This is a guy who's a student of the game, he wants to learn. And some guys aren't students of the game in college. They haven't been exposed to it. But when you bring them in, do they get excited about their craft? Do they get excited about what they can do better and about what you think you can do with them? And then do they have the work ethic to reach that potential? And to me, all of it's important. Like Devin said, I don't want to get enamored with one trait. Every player is a cocktail of different things that can get you to where you want to be. It's a very complicated process. But for me, I'm looking at work ethic and are you a student of the game? Because I think those two things are way more important than any physical trait. Yes, there are things that you cannot play in the NFL. You cannot play wide receiver in the NFL if you weigh 290 pounds and you run 6'2". You just can't do it. Like those are things that like will knock you out. But those would be the two traits that I would look for.
Yeah, I guess yes, no question. But I do. There is definitely a psychological profile for every NFL team.
Right.
I do find it laughable sometimes that that general managers who are the most successful in the world talk about like the makeup of their team and the psychological, and then they go draft a player who's like had all the stuff, and then the immediate response is, well, we've built such a high character locker room, and I believe it. Like, I'm not saying they're wrong. And you can pluck a guy here or two, one or two guys here or there, if they're that talented and you've got enough veteran leadership and all that stuff. I'm just saying, like, if on board with my coaching staff, and you have to be successful in this, I'm going to build, and I'm talking traits, I'm going to build a roster that is more built on physicality, strength, 17 games, grown ass men versus
Philadelphia,
the Dolphins.
Yeah.
They're all the same. All these teams that are winning over the Packers, like you said, the Ravens, the Bills now, they're built on like powerful. That's what lasts in the NFL.
I agree.
I also, it's just a side note. I was talking to a head coach once, and he said, we were just talking philosophy, man. And he said, it's so hard to do. Like, just like Schottenheimer told me once on the ESPN set, when we were on commercial, like the hardest thing to do as an evaluator is predict what a human being is going to do with more money, free time, and fame than they've ever had before, right? It's that combination going to be deadly to predict. This other head coach, we're really like digging into the psychology of all of it. And he said, it's hard to find, but when I'm going through this interview process and I'm talking to our psychologists and I'm reading all the tests that they take, and I go into all of this with the mindset of, I'm trying to find this perfect blend of, in a player, I absolutely need football like a rabid animal. I need it. I don't have a family to rely on. I don't have money, and I don't have a support group. I don't have any, like, literally my whole fucking life is football. I have to there's nothing else. I'm not I can't go work a job. I got nothing. And I'm coachable. And it's hard to find that. Because this comes from not a lot of good upbringing. Times are tough, and it's not forever. But it was an interesting conversation of like this is the only thing for me. I'm not going to have any. I have to have this. So I'm going to give every little, and I don't know any better than give everything. But then to have that personality that's also trustworthy, shows up on time, coachable, listens, trusts me. It's fascinating, right?
Yeah. All right.
You don't seem so fascinated. I was. Go ahead.
Todd, Muench, what has been your absolute most memorable college game day atmosphere? And you're going to have, this is going to be tough for you. And what regions, school, towns do you most enjoy visiting? If you're ever in South Florida, would love to host you at our restaurant, Mandolin Aegean Bistro in Miami. I've never been to Miami, McShay. That's for Matt. We're going to have to reach out to our boy Meg to see if he's been.
I love Miami, man.
That does not surprise me.
I love Miami. I love going out to LA for the USC games, UCLA games, the Rose Bowl. I have my own little world in both of those spots. I don't do like what everyone else does.
Don't throw out 50 places. Give me the one.
So I grew up going to Ohio State, Michigan. My grandfather, as I've told a lot of people, Marshall Brown, worked back in the day where they used to have, probably legal now again, they used to have area recruiters, and he had the Sandusky, Northeast Ohio area for Michigan. Okay. Bo Schembechler, he went to college with. My grandmother went to college with. My grandmother and Bo were from the same small town, Barberton, Ohio. Okay. And so they grew really, like when my grandfather passed, Bo was there. Like that's how close that they were. Like it was at the actual funeral with like security bringing them in, the whole deal, and hugs and talks and all that stuff. And so like, there's nothing more special to me because of my, the nostalgic aspect of it, my family and all that, Ohio State, Michigan, and it is wonderful. But I'll never forget the first time I did early in my career working for ESPN, the first time I ever got down to the SEC, I was working with Ron Franklin and Mike Godfrey, who actually just called me the other day. Wants me to come down and speak this fall in Mobile, Alabama. And Mike, I remember talking to him early in the week, and we were talking, he's like, because I had been to like Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, like I've been to a bunch of good games. We got the Iron Bowl.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was like my first year covering college football, ESPN. Wow. I was like a kind of a spotter, would write football notes, and was there to do a bunch of stuff, including babysitting Ron and Mike when they were getting feisty.
I remember those stories.
But like Ohio State, Michigan was passionate, that they had a lot of like friendly fire jokes, and it was passionate, and it was deep rooted, and it was family, and you don't talk about, but it was like a certain level of sophistication and respectfulness, but like anger and hate and all that stuff. The Iron Bowl was different, man.
Gloves off, huh?
Well, like people die over the Iron Bowl, like families, like, and so you get there and you're walking down the street, and it's like Roll Tide, like War Eagle, like it was just a different. And I remember walking in the stadium at Jordan Hare in Auburn and being like, oh my, like the cracking of the pads and like I don't know, all of it. So that was my first entree into like, oh, it is different.
Yeah, that's cool.
But honestly, the Rose Bowl, like I'll never forget. It was Brian Griese versus Ryan Leaf. I went to that Rose Bowl with my grandfather towards some of his last years. I went to that Rose Bowl with him. And I went on to work with Brian for like 5 years, and we're really good friends now. So like, but like having that memory and then coming full circle and going back and working, doing pregame with ABC and ESPN at the Rose Bowl, like tough to beat how special that is to me and my family. But LSU night game,
Dude, you can't help yourself.
LSU night game, the cuisines, the smells, the 2 days leading up, going all the play. We did a whole. No one watched it, but we did a whole thing on where would Todd be scouting this week, and there's nothing like. Literally nothing like. If you have one shot, if you're in the audience, you got one shot. Someone says you get one opportunity, or you can scratch up the money. You got one chance to go to one place, one environment. I love Georgia. I love Tennessee. I love all the places. Do an LSU night game. The Swamp's pretty cool too with Tom Petty.
All right, here we go. All right, next question. Yes.
It's funny.
I love it.
IU for 40 minutes and Utah tackles
my back,
for 50.
man.
All right,
Big Chargers fan here. This is from John. Big Chargers fan here. It sounds like the knock on Omari and Hampton is that his vision is inconsistent. Is that something that can be improved upon as a pro? How much do scouts weigh that in running back evaluations?
I'm going to throw it back to you real quickly on this. To me, if there was one like fly in the ointment with Hampton, it was tight quarters. Got to make a quick lateral. He wasn't like a runway back where he needed it, but like if you got him going and then he had to make a quick and like tight quarters, that's when he got tripped up. Okay. But I love him in that offense. The vision thing wasn't as much a thing for me, but go ahead.
It wasn't for me either, but it's interesting the way he phrases it here and says his vision is inconsistent, which maybe to me is suggesting that he's not synced up with that offensive line and that system yet. I think that maybe that's the problem, is that he's still learning to read some of those blocks. I don't think his vision was an issue. I'd be surprised if it's an issue going forward, but I do think there's a time where you got to sync up with your offensive linemen. You're understanding how they do things. It's a new kind of way. There's an adjustment period. I will say this. It's a big deal for scouts. I mean, there have been some big name running backs that came out, and I'm thinking about one from Alabama specifically, who I'm not going to say, who didn't do that well in the pros. And a lot of it, there's a lot of video of him just missing gaps. It is an issue. Like, it's an important trait for a running back to have. People want to know whether or not you can read your blocks and get to the right spot. It's a huge deal of a running back evaluation. I'm going to keep this one short.
All right. What do we got next?
Next, we got, hey guys, love the content and being ahead of the game when it comes to players before the season begins has been phenomenal. I've always wondered how grading gets tabulated when we get close to the draft. I've seen numbers like 93, 90, 85 thrown out there, but have never known how you've gotten there. Is there a specific formula, or is it more of a feel that brings you there? I apologize if you've gone over this before and I missed it. Appreciate everything you and the team do. Jonathan.
No, it's just experience. It's 25 years of doing this. It's making mistakes. It's over great, being too high on one and learning. I've often compared our process to air traffic control. Like, you start out in May for the next year, and like we're just trying to get all the planes up in the air and point them in the right direction. And then kind of as we get into the fall, we're kind of figuring out a landing pattern, which planes are going to land in there's certain airports, and kind of shepherd them all there. Then when we get to the pre-draft process, like from the combine on, but even a little bit before that, we're trying to figure out exactly like flight, arrival times, like 9:53, 6 minutes later, like 9:59. You know what I mean? Like, so that hopefully, Jonathan, that provides like a little, but bigger picture, you just kind of know through experience. It seems like a cop out, like that guy. And here's what we just kind of said it a few answers ago. I always, when we start out the process, I'll go back to the last 3 years all the time. I keep the tallies. I get a sense of, all right, here are the guys. Where does he fit? So when we get down with a Nussmeier, it's like, is he between a Cam Ward and a Jackson Dart? Is he better than? Could he be better than Cam Ward? Where is he project? Like where's his ascent? And then 2 years ago, we talk about, is he Caleb? Is he Jaden? Is he Drake? And so that helps formulate. And then you look at their grades and you're just like, I'm going to give him a 92 right now. That's comfortable for me. It's in the ballpark. We're heading towards it, knowing that I got a lot of time to figure out exactly like what altitude, how they're coming in, what exact landing time, and all of that stuff.
So grade-wise, though, let's get more into this because I think that's more of and I think that addresses part of the question about ranking, where you would rank a guy. And we have discussed this before. I think it's good to go over it again. What is a 90 in our system? A 90 to a 99? So
we didn't design it this way, and quite frankly, we had a different grading scale. You hear a lot about like the Ravens and the Eagles, and a lot of them have statements like 6.7, 6.2. Like, originally, Gary Horton, who started this whole thing back at the War Room, it turned into ESPN Scouts Inc. when ESPN bought us out. They were like, we get your system, but like it seems like we're going to have to spend a lot of time on air, and we have graphics and all that. So can you give us a 1 to 100? Okay, so 100 is not reachable. I think like Andrew Luck was a 99. Like it usually class with like a 97, 98. First round is 90, and again, it's if you go through, I could read you our grading scale. Like the 90 to 99 is essentially like these are all pro consistent. Like we believe that this player is going to be a consistent year in, year out, all pro.
We should get this in a mailbag, by the way. This would be good to get in a mailbag.
But I'm happy to do it. Yeah.
Okay.
80s are like really good starters, impact players, 70s, and that it's just worked out where the 90s are typically first round, 80s are second, 70s are third. That 70 range is where it starts to shift to like maybe it's a nickel corner, maybe it's a backup who's going to develop, maybe it's someone who's not quite there yet, but we're betting on the potential, all those sorts of things. 60s are fourth round, typically 50s are fifth, 40s are sixth, 30s are 31 to 39 is seventh round. And then we give 30s for undrafted free agents. 30, the actual number 30, not 31, 30.
Yeah, I think that helps clear it up a little bit. And then, and it is a feel thing, though. When you're looking at it, it's still a feel of, I think this guy could be this in the league. And that's how you're kind of ending up with that grade. And we do this position specifics, and those are an 8 too. When you go through the position specifics and the height, weight, speed, all those helps get you to the grade. But at the end of the day, it really is a feeling. All right, next one. How far out are front offices thinking about the quality of an upcoming draft class, and how does that play into their personnel moves and planning strategy? For example, let's say the class of quarterbacks next year doesn't look great, but the early read on 2027 is strong. Does that impact how they manage draft capital or structure contracts? Michael.
It does. And I don't want to overplay it, but I don't want to underplay it here. There's always an eye towards. Okay. There's always an eye towards what's coming out. Everyone in the scouting community knows that Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams and probably Arch Manning are all going to be in the 2027 draft. What does happen, though, and this is where I think it's really applicable, and I think the Rams just were an example of it. And I think the Eagles and Howie Roseman annually are. And there are several other teams, but I'm just trying to give recent examples of this year's class isn't as good maybe overall, or this year's class isn't good at a position we need, specifically quarterback for the Rams. So let's and combine that with we got Matthew Stafford for one more year definitively. So let's move out of the first round, pick 26. The Giants came up, I believe it was, for Jackson Dart, and let's get a first rounder next year. So now we got two. Maybe Arch is in that class. Maybe we're in love with Klubnik. Okay, so that's an example. I hear stories. I talk to people. I shouldn't say it. Like I talk to people who are telling me stories of we knew next year's group was going to be great, so we weren't as desperate to do it this year. Plus, combine that with what do we have under contract? That's the part where I think everyone's like, is GM good? How did he draft? Like, it's just a tiny part of what they do, man. when you talk to, like, when we sat down and talked to Howie, when we talked to Erik DaCosta, when you talk, even when we're talked off mic about like the contracts that are coming up and how we manage the cap, but also, is this guy aging? Are we set behind him? And then you look at Howie and what he did with the Eagles, and like how deep they are on the defensive line. Well, it wasn't just let's just draft all Georgia defensive linemen. It's I know this contract's coming up, so I got to bring somebody in to be on the back end because I can't afford to pay him, and him. You know?
Yeah,
And
I think you make a really good point about the Rams. I think the Browns are another good example of a team that picked up another first rounder as guys that can go up and get a talent maybe in 2 years. You know, if you're going to do that, if you're looking at someone, that's why the Cleveland Browns thing was so fascinating to me. Was why if you got those two first round picks and you're thinking about getting a quarterback in this draft, why are you then later on drafting two? That's something that didn't make sense to me. I guess
you can't have enough. You can't have enough, and maybe one of them's great, and then maybe
you can have enough.
No, you can't.
I don't think you can have enough edge rushers. I don't think you can have, like, there are positions you can't have enough. Quarterback's not one of them. You were saying you can't have enough.
Let's have them work all off season and training camp, and then next off season, and like, and look at Matt Flynn.
It's a great idea in a bubble, man. I get it. It's a great idea in a bubble.
Look at Matt Flynn coming in.
When I start naming players, when I start naming players that they could have gotten with that Dylan Gabriel pick in 2 years, in 3 years, and about places they have need and they have a different quarterback.
But what if Dylan Gabriel's awesome and now I get 2 first-round picks? I can get a pass rusher and a star wide receiver.
Candy and nuts. We'll see, man. So then I'll name the players. If Gabriel hits, I'll name the players they could have got when they got Sanders. It's a great idea in a bubble, and I like drafting a quarterback every year.
You were probably the one who thought it was crazy to draft after drafting RG3 to draft Kirk Cousins.
I had questions about it. Yeah, there was questions about it, and that worked out. There's no question that worked out. They drafted Kirk Cousins 3rd round, and then they didn't draft another quarterback after that. I mean, like, listen, I get it. There's certain times where you can do an unorthodox thing. I get that. Getting back to this question specifically, I will say this.
Such a friendly afternoon.
Dude, you drive me nuts with that. You can't have too many. So there's a kind of a loser's mentality with looking too far ahead. You really want to address your team. You don't want to be in a position where you're going to get Jeremiah Smith, so you have to have draft capital to go get him. Because if you're getting draft Jeremiah Smith and you have an eye towards that and you're not addressing your roster because of that, man, that's a bad look because you're hoping to get a top 3 pick. So I think that I understand the teams do it a little bit, but you really have to address. And dude, you got to win now. So I do think there's more of an immediacy to what teams do, and they have an idea of what's going on. They're not, they have more than an idea of what's going on and what's coming down the pipe, but they're not waiting for someone to save their team 2 years from now or a year from now, because they just can't do that. They don't know what's going to happen. God forbid someone gets an injury. God forbid something else happens. All of those things you got to address and build the best team that you can, I think, year by year.
Hey, Josh, you had no way of knowing it, but you picked a really shitty time to ask. First of all, congratulations to you, Muench, and the producers and behind-the-scenes crew for building the McShay Show into a must-watch podcast. My question for both of you, what do you believe the other's greatest scouting strength is? I want to leave it open-ended for a 10,000-foot view answer or a more granular one. Josh. So thank you. It's the 13th and final question. It was not great timing. You had no idea on it, but I can put our differences aside and I'll start. As you just saw, and as is the case with everybody in the world, their greatest strength can also be your kryptonite, right?
I like how you're saying it's also a flaw. Thank you.
No, my greatest strengths are my flaws. I promise you. But as you just saw from my good friend Steve, he's emotionally invested. And sometimes it creates a blind spot, but like 99% of the time it's I'm grinding the work. I trust the work. I trust the process. Todd, I don't give a shit what anyone else says. Why is his grade changed? So as a compliment to one another, one of the strengths I appreciate, and obviously it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of tape study. It takes an eye for talent. But the nuanced part that I appreciate about Steve is there's no fucking wavering with this man. It is what it is. It's black and white. I may have to run off and do TV. I've got to do this. I got to do that. I've got all sorts of things, big picture, to worry about. Steve keeps us right here where we belong. Our grade is our grade. We don't care about anybody else. Don't care about what shows up on TV. Don't care about how long a player is going to be waiting to have his name on the board. If we say he's a 94 and he doesn't go to the fourth round, I don't give a shit. We gave him a 94. That part, many things. I could go on for a half hour, even though he's annoying me right now, of all the strengths that Muench has. But he is not afraid to break the norm. He is going to stick with it. And that is a great compliment for me and all the kind of the peripheral stuff that I have to deal with.
All right. There's going to be some groans with the guys listening in, but I'm going to go 3. I'm going to go quick. There's going to be 3. The first is Todd's ability to develop relationships and gather information and develop trust and get really good information and know how to use that information, know who to trust. That's something I admire. It's something that you've done. You started early on in your career, and I think it's paid off in big ways over the course of your career. The second thing I'm going to say is work ethic. Todd and I do different things over the week. We develop different roles. So it's not like he's doing the same things that I'm doing, but I know he's always working when I'm working. There's no easy way to do what we do. There is no shortcuts. And I think that's true about anything in life, whether it's playing an instrument, whether it's learning, whether you're writing a book. There are very few shortcuts in life, man. And so the work ethic for me is something that stands out. And the third one is one that I think that was a weakness for you early on. And I think you've gotten way better at, and that's listening. I think that earlier on you were, as bullish as I can be at times. And I think as you've gotten older and as you've gotten more experience, you're much better at listening to, and not necessarily just, when I don't say listening, I'm not saying, I tell him something and he goes and does it, or he changes something. It's okay, I have to reconsider it. I think you've gotten to be a better listener as you've gotten older. This
is such a sweet way to end.
Yeah.
Especially when your kind words.
My blood is boiling.
Yeah, you're still pissed off about can't have enough quarterbacks. All right, this is fun. Thank you again. Tomorrow, the McShay Report, premium subscribers. I've got a whole stack of papers here.
Great freaking questions, by the way. Great freaking questions.
So we're going to keep doing this. This is going to be a consistent thing that we do. I don't know if it's going to be quarterly, every couple months, what we're going to do, but we're going to put this in the spinning wheel of content that we're going to continue to do. We appreciate you guys taking the time to write it. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate you downloading, subscribing, liking, all of it. We really do. We're getting fired up for the season, but I'm more fired up to go barbecue right now and see what these kids are up to and see if they've finished the first game of EA college football. Muench, I appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate you too, man.
All right, we'll see you guys next week. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.